Namaste, Assalamu alaikum, Shalom, Ni hao, Buenos dias, Heseche, Akwaba, Welcome. What up, though? This is the recorded recitation of the weekly Holy Scripture reading. Recording of the recitation of the weekly Holy Scripture. The portion this week is portion nueve, which is Vayeishev, and that includes within the Torah, Vayeishev, which is Bereshit 37, 1 a 23. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is the Raja Vidya, Raja Yogya, Guya Yogahe. Within the Digha Nikaya, it is the Mahali Sutta. Within the Gospels, it is Matthew chapters 17 a 18. Within the Quran, it is Surah Al-Tawbah, numero 9. And within the Tao Te Ching, it is chapters 49 a 54. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Allahu Akbar. Deus nos quies in cielo, santificato nomen tuum, Vayeishev. Dao kedao fehung dao. Ja. Baruch ata Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam hamotzi lachem min haaretz. Kyrie eleison. Sivu masu savrigatehem. Sabe sata bavantu sukitata. Fagabia. Ubuntu. Shabono. Fekako. Akwaba upendana amani. Womanjikam. Shishe. Komosanina. Domo arigato. Pelama yelo wakantonga. Tok odoka shingu. God, we thank you for all that you bless us. Go with me, God. Ata jamayata fanami. Aho. Om shanti shanti shanti. Amen. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Allahu Akbar. Deus nos quies in cielo, santificato nomen tuum, Vayeishev. Dao kedao fehung dao. Ja. Baruch ata Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam asher ketzanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu l'asok b'davarei Torah. Kyrie eleison. Siva mastu savajagatehe. Sabe sata bavantu sukitata. Fagabia. Ubuntu. Shabonum. Fekako. Akwaba upendana amani. Womanjika. Shishe. Komosanida. Domo arigato. Pilama yelo wakantokum. Tok odoga shingu. God, we thank you for all that you bless us. Go with me to God. At the jamayata fanami. Aho. Om shanti shanti shanti. Amen. Torah, Vayeishev, Bereshit 37, 1 a 23. Yaakov dwelt in the land of his far's sojournings, in the land of Canaan. These are the generations of Yaakov. When Yosef was 17 years old, being a shepherd, he was with his brothers with the flocks, and he was a lad, and was with the sons of Bilhah, and with the sons of Zilpah, his far's wives. And Yosef brought evil tales about them to their far. And Israel loved Yosef further than all his sons, because he was a son of his old age, and he made him a fine woolen coat. And his brothers saw that their far loved him further than all his brothers, so they hated him, and they could not speak with him peacefully. And Yosef dreamed a dream and told his brothers, and they continued to hate him. And he said to them, Listen now to this dream which I have dreamed. Behold, we were binding sheaves in the midst of the field, and behold, my sheaf arose and also stood upright, and behold, your sheaves encircled it, and prostrated themselves to my sheaf. So his brother said to him, Will you reign over us, or will you govern us? And they continued further to hate him on account of his dreams and on account of his words. And he again dreamed another dream, and he related it to his brothers. And he said, Behold, I have dreamed another dream, and behold, the soleil, the moon, and 11 stars were prostrating themselves to me. And he told it to his far and to his brothers. And his far rebuked him and said to him, What is this dream that you have dreamed? Will we come, I, your more, and your brothers, to prostrate ourselves to you to the ground? So his brothers envied him, but his far awaited the matter. And his brothers went to pasture their far's flocks in Shechem. And Israel said to Joseph, Are your brothers not pasturing in Shechem? Come, and I will send you to them. And he said to him, Here I am. So he said to him, Go now and see to your brother's welfare and the welfare of the flocks, and bring me back word. So he sent him from the valley of Hebron, and he came to Shechem. Then a man found him, and behold, he was straying in the field. And the man asked him, saying, What are you looking for? And he said, I am looking for my brothers. Tell me now, where are they pasturing? And the man said, They have traveled away from here, for I overheard them say, Let us go to Dotan. So Joseph went after his brothers, and he found them in Dotan. And they saw him from a distance, and when he had not yet drawn near to them, they plotted against him to put him to death. So they said one to the other, Behold, that dreamer is coming. So now let us kill him, and we will cast him into one of the pits, and we will say, A wild beast devoured him, and we will see what will become of his dreams. But Reuben heard, and he saved him from their hands, and he said, Let us not deal with him a deadly blow. And Reuben said to them, Do not shed blood, cast him into this pit which is in the desert, but do not lay a hand upon him, in order to save him from their hands, to return him to his far. Now it came to pass, when Joseph came to his brothers, that they stripped Joseph of his shirt, of the fine woolen coat which was upon him. And they took him and cast him into the pit. Now the pit was empty, there was no water in it. And they sat down to eat a meal, and they lifted their eyes and saw, and behold, a caravan of Ishmaelites was coming from Gilead, and their camels were carrying spices, balm, and lotus, going to take it down to Egypt. And Yehudah said to his brothers, What is the gain if we slay our brother and cover up his blood? Come, let us sell him to the Ishmaelites. But our hand shall not be upon him, for he is our brother, our flesh. And his brothers hearkened. Then Midianite men, merchants, passed by, and they pulled and lifted Joseph from the pit, and they sold Joseph to the Ishmaelites for 20 silver portions. And they brought Joseph to Egypt. And Reuben returned to the pit, and behold, Joseph was not in the pit, so he rent his garments. And he returned to his brothers, and said, The boy is gone, and where will I go? And they took Joseph's coat, and they slaughtered a kid, and they dipped the coat in the blood. And they sent the fine woolen coat, and they brought it to their far, and they said, We have found this, now recognize whether it is your son's coat or not. He recognized it, and he said, It is my son's coat, a wild beast has devoured him. Joseph has surely been torn up. And Yaakov rent his garments, and he put sackcloth on his loins, and he grieved for his son many days. And all his sons and all his daughters arose to console him, but he refused to be consoled, for he said, Because I will descend on account of my son as a griever to the grave. And his far wept for him. And the Midianites sold him to Egypt, to Potiphar, Pharaoh's chamberlain, chief of the slaughterers. Now it came about at that time that Yehudah was demoted by his brothers, and he turned away until he came to an Adulamite man, named Hirah. And there Yehudah saw the daughter of a merchant named Shua, and he took her and came to her. And she conceived and bore a son, and he named him Er. And she conceived again and bore a son, and she named him Onan. Once again she bore a son, and she named him Shelah. And he, Yehudah, was in Chezib when she gave birth to him. And Yehudah took a wife for Er, his firstborn, named Tamar. Now Er, Yehudah's firstborn, was evil in the eyes of the Lord, and the Lord put him to death. Yehudah said to Onan, Come to your brother's wife and perform the rite of the Levirate, and raise up progeny for your brother. Now Onan knew that the progeny would not be his, and it came about, when he came to his brother's wife, he wasted his semen on the ground, in order not to give seed to his brother. Now what he did was evil in the eyes of the Lord, and Adonai put him to death also. Then Yehudah said to his daughter-in-law Tamar, Remain as a widow in your father's house until my son Shelah grows up. For he said, Lest he too die like his brothers. So Tamar went, and she remained in her father's house. Many days passed, and Shua's daughter, Yehudah's wife, died. And Yehudah was consoled, and he went up to watch over his sheep shearers, he and Hirah, his Adulamite friend, to Timnah. And it was told to Tamar, saying, Behold, your father-in-law is going up to Timnah to shear his sheep. So she took off her widow's garb, covered her head with a veil, and covered her face. And she sat down at the crossroads that were on the way to Timnah, for she saw that Shelah had grown up. But as for her, she was not given to him for a wife. When Yehudah saw her, he thought she was a harlot, because she covered her face. So he turned aside toward her to the road, and he said, Get ready now, I will come to you. For he did not know that she was his daughter-in-law. And she said, What will you give me that you should come to me? And he said, I will send a kid from the herd. And she said, Only if you give me a pledge until you send it. So he said, What is the pledge that I should give you? And she said, Your signet, your cloak, and the staff that is in your hand. So he gave them to her, and he came to her, and she conceived his likeness. Then she arose and went away, and she took off her veil, and she donned her widow's garb. And Yehudah sent the kid by the hand of his Adullamite friend to take the pledge from the woman's hand, but he did not find her. So he asked the people of the place, saying, Where is the harlot who was at the crossroads on the way? And they said, No harlot was here. So he returned to Yehudah and he said, I have not found her. And the people of the place also said, No harlot was here. So Yehudah said, Let her take them for herself, lest we become a laughingstock. Behold, I sent this kid, but you did not find her. Now it came about after nearly 3 months that it was told to Yehudah, saying, Your daughter-in-law Tamar has played the harlot, and behold, she is pregnant from harlotry. So Yehudah said, Bring her out and let her be burned. She was taken out, and she sent to her father-in-law, saying, From the man to whom these belong I am pregnant. And she said, Please recognize whose signet, ring, cloak, and staff are these. Then Yehudah recognized them, and he said, She is right. It is from me, because I did not give her to my son Shelah. But he no longer continued to be intimate with her. And it came about at the time she was giving birth, that behold, there were twins in her womb. And it came about when she gave birth, that he, the infant, stretched out his hand. So the midwife took and bound a crimson thread on his hand, saying, This one came out first. And it came about as he was drawing back his hand, behold, his brother emerged, and she said, With what strength you have strengthened yourself. And he, Yehudah, named him Peretz. Afterwards his brother emerged, the one upon whose hand was the crimson thread, and he named him Zerah. Now Yosef had been brought down to Egypt, and Potiphar, Pharaoh's chamberlain, chief of the slaughterers, an Egyptian man, purchased him from the Ishmaelites who had brought him down there. The Lord was with Yosef, and he was a successful man, and he was in the house of his Egyptian master. And his master saw that the Lord was with him, and whatever he, Yosef, did, the Lord made prosper in his hand. And Yosef found favor in his eyes, and he, Yosef, served him, and he, Potiphar, appointed him over his house, and all he had he gave into his hand. Now it came to pass that since he had appointed him over his house and over all that he had, the Lord blessed the house of the Egyptian for Yosef's sake. And the blessing of the Lord was in all that he had, in the house and in the field. So he left all that he had in Joseph's hand, and he knew nothing about what was with him except the bread that he ate. And Joseph had handsome features and a beautiful complexion. Now it came to pass after these events that his master's wife lifted up her eyes to Joseph, and she said, Lie with me. But he refused, and he said to his master's wife, Behold, with me my master knows nothing about anything in the house, and all he has given into my hand. In this house there is no one greater than I, and he has not withheld anything from me except you, insomuch as you are his wife. Now how can I commit this great evil and sin against God? Now it came to pass, when she spoke to Joseph day in and day out, that he did not obey her, to lie beside her and to be with her. And it came about on a certain day that he came to the house to do his work, and none of the people of the house were there in the house. So she grabbed him by his garment, saying, Lie with me. But he left his garment in her hand and fled and went outside. Now it happened when she saw that he had left his garment in her hand and he had fled outside, that she called to the people of her house, and she spoke to them, saying, Look, he brought us a Hebrew man to mock us. He came to me to lie with me, but I called loudly. And it happened that when he heard that I raised my voice and called out, he left his garment beside me, and he fled and went outside. So she left his garment beside her until his master came home. And she told him the same thing, saying, The Hebrew slave that you brought to us came to me to mock me. And it happened when I raised my voice and called out, that he left his garment beside me and fled outside. Now it came about when his master heard his wife's report that she spoke to him, saying, Your slave did such things to me, that his wrath burned. So Joseph's master took him and put him into prison, and the place where the king's prisoners were in prison, and he was there in prison. The Lord was with Joseph, and Adonai extended charisma to him, and Adonai gave him favor in the eyes of the warden of the prison. So the warden of the prison delivered all the prisoners who were in the prison into Joseph's hand, and whatever they did there, he was the one who did it. The warden of the prison did not inspect anything that was in Yosef's hand, for the Lord was with him, and whatever he did, the Lord made prosper. Now it came about after these events that the cupbearer of the king of Egypt and the baker sinned against their master, against the king of Egypt. And Pharaoh became incensed at his two chamberlains, at the chief cupbearer and at the chief baker. And he placed them in the prison of the house of the chief of the slaughterers, into the prison, the place where Joseph was in prison. And the chief of the slaughterers appointed Joseph to be with them, and he served them, and they were a year in prison. Now both of them dreamed a dream, each one his dream on the same night, each man according to the interpretation of his dream, the cupbearer and the baker of the king of Egypt, who were confined in the prison. And Joseph came to them in the matin, and he saw them, and behold, they were troubled. And he asked Pharaoh's chamberlains who were with him in the prison of his master's house, saying, Why are your faces sad today? And they said to him, We have dreamed a dream, and there is no interpreter for it. Joseph said to them, Don't interpretations belong to God? Tell them to me now. So the chief cupbearer related his dream to Joseph, and he said to him, In my dream, behold, a vine is before me, and on the vine there are 3 tendrils, and it seemed to be blossoming, and its buds came out. Then its clusters ripened into grapes. And Pharaoh's cup was in my hand, and I took the grapes and squeezed them into Pharaoh's cup, and I placed the cup on Pharaoh's palm. And Joseph said to him, This is its meaning. The 3 tendrils are 3 days. And in another 3 days Pharaoh will number you with the other officers, and he will restore you to your position. And you will place Pharaoh's cup into his hand according to your previous custom when you were his cupbearer. But remember me when the things go well with you, and please do me a favor and mention me to Pharaoh, and you will get me out of this house. For I was stolen from the land of the Hebrews, and here too I have done nothing, for which they have put me into the dungeon. Now the chief baker saw that he had interpreted well, so he said to Joseph, Me too. In my dream, behold, there were 3 wicker baskets on my head, and in the topmost basket were all kinds of Pharaoh's food, the work of a baker, and the birds were eating them from the basket atop my head. And Joseph replied and said, This is its meaning. The 3 baskets represent 3 days. In another 3 days Pharaoh will remove your head from you and hang you on a gallows, and the birds will eat your flesh off you. Now it came about on the 3rd day, Pharaoh's birthday, that Pharaoh made a feast for all his servants, and he counted the chief cupbearer and chief baker amongst his servants. And he restored the chief cupbearer to his position as cupbearer, and he placed the cup on Pharaoh's palm. And the chief baker he hanged as Joseph had interpreted to them. But the chief cupbearer did not remember Joseph, and he forgot him. Bhagavad Gita, Raja Vidya Raja Guya Yogehe, numero 9. Sri Krishna said, To you, O Arjuna, who do not carp, I will propound this, the greatest mystery of knowledge combined with realization, by understanding which you will be released from evil. It is the sovereign science, the sovereign mystery, and the supreme purifier. It is perceived by direct experience. It accords with Dharma. It is easy to practice, and it is imperishable. Men without faith in this Dharma do not attain me, O dreaded Arjuna, but return to the path of the world fraught with death. By me, in my unmanifested form, are all things in this universe pervaded. All beings exist in me, but I do not exist in them. And yet the beings do not dwell in me. Behold, that is my divine mystery. My spirit, which is the support of all beings and the source of all things, does not dwell in them. As the mighty wind blowing everywhere ever rests in the Akasha, know that in the same manner all beings rest in me. At the end of a cycle of beings, O son of Kunti. At the end of a cycle, all beings, O son of Kunti, enter into my Prakriti, and at the beginning of a cycle I generate them again. Controlling my own Prakriti, I send forth again and again all this multitude of beings helpless under the sway of Maya. And these acts, O Dhananjaya, do not bind me, for I remain unattached to them as one unconcerned. Prakriti, under my guidance, gives birth to all things, moving and unmoving, and because of this, O son of Kunti, the world revolves. Fools disregard me when I assume a human form, for they are unaware of my higher nature as the supreme Lord of all beings. Being of the deceitful nature of fiends and demons, they cherish vain hopes, perform vain actions, pursue vain knowledge, and are devoid of judgment. But the great souled men, O Partha, who are endowed with the divine nature, worship me with undisturbed minds, knowing that I am immutable and the origin of all beings. Ever glorifying me, always striving with self control, remaining firm in their vows, bowing before me, they worship me with love and unwavering steadiness. Others again offer the oblation of knowledge and worship me either as one with them or as distinct from them, and still others in various ways worship me, whose form is the whole universe. I am the sacrifice, I am the worship, I am the oblation to the mains, I am cereal. I am the hymn, I am the melted butter, I am the fire, and I am the offering. I am the far of this universe, the more, the sustainer, and the grandsire. I am the noble, the purifier, and the syllable Om. I am also the Rig, the Saman, and the Yajus. I am the goal and the support, the Lord and the witness, the abode, the refuge, and the friend. I am the origin and the dissolution, the ground, the storehouse, and the imperishable seed. I give heat, I hold back and send forth rain. I am eternity, O Arjuna, and also death. I am being and I am non-being. Those who know the three Vedas and drink the Sama juice and are purified from sin worship me with sacrifices and pray for passage to heaven. They reach the holy world of Indra and enjoy in heaven the celestial pleasures of the angels. Having enjoyed the vast heavenly world, they come back to the world of living beings when their merit is exhausted. Thus, abiding by the injunctions of the three Vedas and desiring desires, they are subject to death and rebirth. Those persons who worship me, meditating on their identity with me and ever devoted to me, to them I carry what they lack, and for them I preserve what they already have. Even those devotees who endowed with faith worship other angels worship me alone, O son of Kunti, though in a wrong way. For I alone am the enjoyer and the Lord of all sacrifices. But these men do not know me in reality, hence they fall. Those who worship the angels go to the angels. Those who worship the mains go to the mains. Those who worship the spirits go to the spirits. And those who worship me come to me. Whosoever offers me with devotion a leaf, a flower, a fruit, or water, that I accept, the pious offering of the pure in heart. Whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you offer in sacrifice, whatever you give away, and whatever you practice in the form of austerities, O son of Kunti, do it as an offering to me. Thus shall you be free from the bondage of actions which bear benevolent or evil results. With your mind firmly set on the yoga of renunciation, you shall become free and come to me. I am the same towards all beings. To me there is none hateful or dear. But those who worship me with devotion, they are in me, and I too am in them. Even the most sinful man, if he worships me with unserving devotion, must be regarded as righteous, for he has formed the right resolution. He soon becomes righteous and attains eternal peace. Proclaim it boldly, O son of Kunti, that my devotee never perishes. For those who take refuge in me, O Partha, though they be of sinful birth, women, Vaishyas, and Sudras, even they attain the supreme goal. How much further, then, if they be holy Brahmins or royal seers devoted to God? Having come into this transitory, joyless world, worship me. Fix your mind on me, be devoted to me, sacrifice to me, bow down to me. Having thus disciplined yourself in regarding me as the supreme goal, you will come to me. Digha the Mahali Sutta. Thus have I heard. The Blessed One was once staying at Vesali at the gabled hall in the Great Wood. Now at that time a number of Brahmins who had been sent on pressing business of one kind or another from Kosali and Magda were lodging at Vesali. And they heard the news. They say that the Samana Gotama of the Sakya clan, who went out from a Sakya family to adopt the religious life, is now staying at Vesali at the gabled hall in the Great Wood. Now regarding that venerable Gotama, such is the high reputation that has been noised abroad. That blessed one is an Arhat, a fully awakened one, abounding in wisdom and benevolence, happy, who knows all worlds, unsurpassed as a guide to living beings willing to be led, a teacher for angels and men, a blessed one, a Buddha. He by himself thoroughly knows and sees, as it were, face to face this universe, including the worlds above of the angels, the Brahmas, and the Maras, and the world below with its recluses and Brahmins, its princes and peoples. And having known it, he makes his knowledge known to others. The truth, lovely in its origin, lovely in its progress, lovely in its consummation, doth he proclaim, both in the spirit and in the letter. The higher life doth he make known in all its fullness and in all its purity. And beneficial is it to pay visits to arahats like that. So those Brahmins from Kosala and Magadha went out to the great wood and to the gabled hall. Now at that time the venerable Nagita was acting as the personal attendant on the Blessed One, and they went to him and said, "Where is it, Nagita, that the venerable Gotama is lodging now? For we wish to see him. It is not a fitting time, sirs, to call upon the Blessed One. He has retired into solitude." Then they sat down round about, saying, "We will not go away without seeing the venerable Gotama." And Harelip the Lakavi too came to the great wood and to the gabled hall with a retinue of his clan, and going up to the venerable Nagita, he saluted him, and reverently standing apart, he said to him, "Where, venerable Nagita, is the Blessed One now lodging, the Arhat, the Buddha? For we wish to see him." And on receiving a similar reply, he too sat down apart, saying, "I will not go till I have seen the August One, the Arhat, the Buddha." But Siha, a novice, came up to the venerable Nagita and saluted him, and standing reverently apart, he said to him, "These envoys of the Brahmins from Kosala and Magadha, many of them have come, O Kasapa, to call upon the Blessed One. And Harelip the Kavi too, with a retinue of his clan, has come to do the same. 'Twere best, O Kasapa, that all this folk should be allowed to see the Blessed One." "Very well then, Siha, tell the Blessed One yourself." "Very well, sir," and said Siha the novice, in assent to the venerable Nagita. And he went where the Blessed One was, and saluted him, and standing reverently apart, he said to him, even as he had said to Nagita, "Very well, Siha, spread out a mat for me in the shade in front of the house." And Siha did so, and the Blessed One came out from the house and sat down, and the Brahmins from Kosala and Magadha exchanged with him the greetings and compliments of politeness and courtesy, and took their seats on one side. And Harelip the Lakavi also, with the retinue of his clan, bowed down to the Blessed One and seated himself on one side. And when he was thus seated, he addressed the Blessed One and said, "Some few days ago, sir, Sunakata of the Lakavis came to me and said, 'It is only 3 years, Mahali, since I first came under the Blessed One, and I can see heavenly forms, pleasant to behold, fitted to satisfy all one's desires, exciting longing in one's heart, but I cannot hear heavenly sounds like that.' Now, sir, are there such heavenly sounds which he could not hear, or have they no existence? They are actual, those heavenly sounds, pleasant, fitted to satisfy one's desires, exciting longing in one's heart, which he could not hear. They are not things of naught. But what then is the proximate and what the ultimate cause, why he could not hear them, they being thus actual and not things of naught?" Suppose a recluse, Mahali, to have practiced one-sided concentration of mind, with the object of seeing such heavenly forms in any one direction, in the east or the south or the west or the north, or above or below or across, and not with the object of hearing such heavenly sounds. Then, since he has practiced one-sided concentration, with the one object only in view, he only sees the sights, he hears not the sounds. And why not? Because of the nature of his self-concentration, samadhi. And so also, Mahali, if he have practiced one-sided concentration with the object of hearing in any one direction the heavenly sounds, then, and for the same reason, he hears the sounds, but he sees not the sights. But suppose, Mahali, he has practiced self-concentration with the double object in view of seeing and hearing in any one direction those heavenly sights and those heavenly sounds. Then, since he has practiced self-concentration with the double object in view, he both sees the sights and hears the sounds. And why so? Because of the nature of his self-concentration. Then, sir, is it for the sake of attaining to the practice of such self-concentration that the brethren lead the religious life under the Blessed One? No, Mahali, there are things higher and sweeter than that, for the sake of which they do so. And what, sir, may those other things be? In the first place, Mahali, a brother by the complete destruction of the 3 bonds, the delusions of self, doubt, and trust, and the efficacy of benevolent works and ceremonies, becomes a converted man, one who cannot be reborn in any state of woe, and is assured of attaining to the insight of the stages higher still. That, Mahali, is a condition higher and sweeter, for the sake of which the brethren lead a religious life under me. And then further, Mahali, a brother by the complete destruction of those 3 bonds, and by the reducing to a minimum lust, ill will, and dullness, becomes a once returner, one who on his first return to this world shall make an end of pain. That, Mahali, is a condition higher still and sweeter, for the sake of which the brethren lead the religious life under me. And then further, Mahali, a brother by the complete destruction of the 5 bonds that bind people to this world becomes an inheritor of the highest heavens, there to pass away, thence never to return. That, Mahali, is a condition higher still and sweeter, for the sake of which the brethren lead the religious life under me. And then further, Mahali, when a brother by the destruction of the deadly floods or intoxications, the lust, becomings, delusion, and ignorance, has by himself known and realized and continues to abide here in this visible world, in that emancipation of mind, that emancipation of heart, which is arahatship, That Mahali is a condition higher still and sweeter still, for the sake of which the brethren lead the religious life under me. Such Mahali are the conditions higher and sweeter than seeing heavenly sights and hearing heavenly sounds, for the sake of which the brethren lead the religious life under me. But is there, sir, a path? Is there a method for the realization of these conditions? Yes, Mahali, there is. And what, sir, may be that path? What that method? Verily, it is the Noble Eightfold Path, that is to say, right views, right aspirations, right speech, right action, a right means of livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right ecstasy in self-concentration. This Mahali is the path, and this the method for the realization of these conditions. One day, Mahali, I was staying at Kosambi in the Gosita Pleasuance. There are two recluses, Mandisa, the watering mendicant, and Jalia, the pupil of Darupatika, the man with the wooden bowl, came to me and exchanged with me the greetings and compliments of politeness and courtesy, and stood reverently apart. And so standing, they said to me, "How is it then, O Venerable Gotama? Is the soul the same thing as the body, or is the soul one thing and the body another? Listen then, sirs, and give heed attentively, and I will speak." "Very well, sir," said those two mendicants in assent, and I spake as follows. Herein, sirs, a Tathagata arises in the world, a worthy one, perfectly enlightened, endowed with clear knowledge and conduct, accomplished, a knower of the world, unsurpassed, trainer of men to be tamed, teacher of angels and men, enlightened and exalted. Having realized by his own direct knowledge this world with its angels, its Maras and its Brahmas, this generation with its recluses and Brahmins, its rulers and people, he makes it known to others. He teaches the Dhamma that is benevolent in the beginning, benevolent in the middle, and benevolent in the end, possessing meaning and phrasing. He reveals the holy life that is fully complete and purified. A householder or a householder's son, or one born into some other family, hears the Dhamma. Having heard the Dhamma, he gains faith in the Tathagata. Endowed with such faith, he reflects. The household life is crowded, a path of dust. Going forth is like the open air. It is not easy for one dwelling at home to lead the perfectly complete, perfectly purified holy life, bright as a polished conch. Let me then shave off my hair and beard, put on saffron robes, and go forth from home to homelessness. And after some time he abandons his accumulation of wealth, be it large or small. He abandons his circle of relatives, be it large or small. He shaves off his hair and beard, puts on saffron robes, and goes forth from home to homelessness. When he has thus gone forth, he lives restrained by the restraint of the Patimokkha, possessed of proper behavior and resort. Having taken up the rules of training, he trains himself in them, seeing danger in the slightest fault. He comes to be endowed with wholesome bodily and verbal action. His livelihood is purified, and he is possessed of conduct. He guards the doors of his sense faculties, is endowed with mindfulness and clear comprehension, and is content. And how, sirs, is the bhikshu possessed of the ethical discipline? Herein, sirs, having abandoned the destruction of life, the bhikshu abstains from the destruction of life. He has laid down the rod and weapon, and dwells conscientious, full of kindness, sympathetic for the welfare of all living beings. Having abandoned taking what is not given, he abstains from taking what is not given. Accepting and expecting only what is given, he lives in honesty with a pure mind. Having abandoned in celibacy, he leads the holy life of celibacy. He dwells aloof and abstains from the vulgar practice of sexual intercourse. Having abandoned false speech, he abstains from falsehood. He speaks only the truth. He lives devoted to truth. Trustworthy and reliable, he does not deceive anyone in the world. Having abandoned slander, he abstains from slander. He does not repeat elsewhere what he has heard here in order to divide others from the people here. Nor does he repeat here what he has heard elsewhere in order to divide these people from the people there. Thus he is a reconciler of those who are divided and a promoter of friendships. Rejoicing, delighting, and exulting in concord, he speaks only words that are conducive to concord. Having abandoned harsh speech, he abstains from harsh speech. He speaks only such words as are gentle, pleasing to the ear, endearing, going to the heart, polite, amiable, and agreeable to the many folk. Having abandoned idle chatter, he abstains from idle chatter. He speaks at the right time, speaks what is factual and beneficial, speaks on the Dhamma and the discipline. His words are worth treasuring. They are timely, backed by reasons, measured, and connected with the benevolent. He abstains from damaging seed and plant life. He eats only in one part of the day, refraining from food at night and from eating at improper times. He abstains from dancing, singing, instrumental music, and from witnessing unsuitable shows. He abstains from wearing garlands, embellishing himself with scents, and beautifying himself with unguents. He abstains from high and luxurious beds and seats. He abstains from accepting gold and silver. He abstains from accepting uncooked grain, raw meat, women and girls, male and female slaves, goats and sheep, fowl and swine, elephants, cattle, horses, and mares. He abstains from accepting fields and lands. He abstains from running messages and errands. He abstains from buying and selling. He abstains from dealing with false weights, false metals, and false measures. He abstains from the crooked ways of bribery, deception, and fraud. He abstains from mutilating, executing, imprisoning, robbery, plunder, and violence. This too pertains to his ethical discipline. Whereas some recluses and Brahmins, whilst living on food offered by the faithful, continually cause damage to seed and plant life, to plants propagated from roots, stems, joints, buds, and seeds. He abstains from such damaging seed and plant life. Whereas some recluses and Brahmins, whilst living on food offered by the faithful, enjoy the utilization of stored up treasures, such as stored up food, drinks, garments, vehicles, bedding, scents, and comestibles. He abstains from the utilization of stored up treasures. Whereas some recluses and Brahmins, whilst living on food offered by the faithful, attend unsuitable shows such as shows featuring dancing, singing, or instrumental music, theatrical performances, narrations of legends, music played by hand clapping, cymbals and drums, picture houses, acrobatic performances, combats of elephants, horses, buffaloes, bulls, goats, rams, cocks, and quails, sticks fights, boxing and wrestling, sham fights, roll calls, battle arrays, and regimental reviews. He abstains from attending such unsuitable shows. Whereas some recluses and Brahmins, whilst living on food offered by the faithful, indulge in the following games and recreations: Atapata, a game played on an 8-row chessboard; Dasapada, a game played on a 10-row chessboard; Akasa, played by imagining a board in the air; Pariharapata, hopscotch, a diagram is drawn on the ground and one has to jump in allowable spaces, avoiding the lines; Santika, spillikins, assembling the segments in a pile, removing and returning them without disturbing the pile; Kalika, dice games; Gatika, hitting a short stick with a long stick; Salakahata, a game played by dipping the hand in paint or dye, striking the ground or a wall, and requiring the participants to show the figure of an elephant, a horse, and additionally; Aka, ball games; Pangachira, blowing through toy pipes made of leaves; Bankaka, plowing with miniature plows; Moka Chika, turning somersaults; Chingulika, playing with some paper windmills; Patalaka, playing with toy measures; Rataka, playing with toy chariots; Danuka, playing with toy bows; Akarika, guessing at letters written in the air or on one's back; Manasika, guessing others' thoughts; Yatavaja, games involving mimicry or deformities. He abstains from such games that are a basis for negligence. Whereas some recluses and Brahmins, whilst living on food offered by the faithful, enjoy the utilization of high and luxurious beds and seats, such as spacious couches, thrones with animal figures carved on the supports, long-haired coverlets, multicolored patchwork coverlets, white woolen coverlets embroidered with flowers, quilts stuffed with cotton, woolen coverlets embroidered with animal figures, woolen coverlets with hair on both sides or on one side, bedspreads embroidered with gems, silk coverlets, dance hall carpets, elephant, horse, or chariot rugs, rugs of antelope skins, choice spreads made of kadali deer hides, spreads with red awnings overhead, couches with red cushions for head and feet. He abstains from the utilization of such high and luxurious beds and seats. Whereas some recluses and Brahmins, whilst living on food offered by the faithful, enjoy the utilization of such devices for embellishing and beautifying themselves, such as the following: rubbing scented powders into the body, massaging with oils, bathing in perfumed water, kneading the limbs, mirrors, ointments, garlands, scents, unguents, face powders, makeup, bracelets, headbands, decorated walking sticks, ornamented medicine tubes, rapiers, soleil shades, embroidered sandals, turbans, diadems, yak-tail whisks, and long-fringed white robes. He abstains from the utilization of such devices for embellishment and beautification. Whereas some recluses and Brahmins, whilst living on the food offered by the faithful, engage in frivolous chatter, such as talk about kings, thieves, and ministers of state, talk about armies, dangers, and wars, talk about food, drink, garments, and lodgings, talk about garlands and scents, talk about relations, vehicles, villages, towns, cities, and countries, talk about women and talk about heroes, street talk and talk by the well, talk about those departed in days gone by, rambling chit-chat, speculations about the world and about the sea, talk about gain and loss. He abstains from such frivolous chatter. Whereas some recluses and Brahmins, whilst living on the food offered by the faithful, engage in wrangling argumentation, saying to one another, "You don't understand this doctrine and discipline. It is I who understand this doctrine and discipline. How can you understand this doctrine and discipline? You're practicing the wrong way. I'm practicing the right way. I'm being consistent. You're inconsistent. What should have been said first, you said last. What should have been said last, you said first. What you took so long to think out has been confuted. Your doctrine has been refuted. You're defeated. Go try to save your doctrine or disentangle yourself now if you can." He abstains from such wrangling argumentation. Whereas some recluses and Brahmins, whilst living on the food offered by the faithful, engage in running messages and run errands for kings, ministers of state, kachiyas, Brahmins, householders, or youths who command them. Go here, go there, take this, bring that from there. He abstains from running such messages and errands. Whereas some recluses and Brahmins, whilst living on the food offered by the faithful, engage in scheming, talking, hinting, belittling others, and pursuing gain with gain. He abstains from such kinds of scheming and talking. Whereas some recluses and Brahmins, whilst living on food offered by the faithful, earn their living by wrong means of livelihood, by such debased arts as prophesying long life, prosperity, or the reverse from the marks on a person's limbs, hands, feet, and additionally, divining by means of omens and signs, making auguries on the basis of thunderbolts and celestial portents, interpreting ominous dreams, telling fortunes from marks on the body, making auguries from the marks on cloth gnawed by mice, offering fire oblations, offering oblations from a ladle, offering oblations of husks, white rice powder, rice grains, ghee, and oil to the angels, offering oblations from the mouth, offering blood sacrifices to the angels, making predictions based on the fingertips, determining whether the site for a proposed house or garden is propitious or not, making predictions for officers of state, laying demons in a cemetery, laying ghosts, knowledge of charms to be pronounced by one living in an earthen house, snake charming, the poison craft, scorpion craft, rat craft, bird craft, crow craft, foretelling the number of years that a man has to live, reciting charms to give protection from arrows, reciting charms to understand the language of animals. He abstains from such wrong means of livelihood, from such debased arts. Whereas some recluses and Brahmins, whilst living on the food offered by the faithful, earn their living by wrong means of livelihood by such debased arts as interpreting the significance of the color, shape, and other features of the following items to determine whether they portend fortune or misfortune for their owners: gems, garments, staffs, swords, spears, arrows, bows, other weapons, women, men, boys, girls, slaves, slave women, elephants or horses, buffaloes, bulls, cows, goats, rams, fowls, quails, lizards, earrings or house gables, tortoises, and other animals. He abstains from such wrong means of livelihood, from such debased arts. Whereas some recluses and Brahmins, whilst living on the food offered by the faithful, earn their living by wrong means of livelihood by such debased arts as making predictions to the effect that the king will march forth, the king will return, our king will attack, and the enemy king will retreat, the enemy king will attack, and our king will retreat, our king will triumph, and the enemy king will be defeated, the enemy king will triumph, and our king will be defeated. Thus there will be victory for one and defeat for the other. He abstains from such wrong means of livelihood, from such debased arts. Whereas some recluses and Brahmins, whilst living on the food offered by the faithful, earn their living by wrong means of livelihood by such debased arts as predicting. There will be an eclipse of the moon, an eclipse of the soleil, an eclipse of a constellation. The soleil and the moon will go on their proper courses. There will be an aberration of the soleil and the moon. The constellations will go on their proper courses. There will be an aberration of a constellation. There will be a fall of meteors. There will be a sky blaze. There will be an earthquake. There will be an earth war. There will be a rising and setting, a darkening and brightening of the moon, soleil, and constellations. Such will be the result of the moon's eclipse, such will the result of the soleil's eclipse, and so on down to such will be the result of the rising and setting, darkening and brightening of the moon, soleil, and constellations. He abstains from such wrong means of livelihood, from such debased arts. Whereas some recluses and Brahmins, whilst living on the food offered by the faithful, earn their living by wrong means of livelihood, by such debased arts as predicting. There will be an abundant rain, there will be a drought, there will be a benevolent harvest, there will be a famine, there will be security, there will be danger, there will be sickness, there will be health. Or they earn their living by accounting, computation, calculation, the composing of poetry, and speculations about the world. He abstains from such wrong means of livelihood, from such debased arts. Whereas some recluses and Brahmins, whilst living on the food offered by the faithful, earn their living by wrong means of livelihood, by such debased arts as arranging auspicious dates for marriages, both those in which the bride is brought home and those in which she is sent out, arranging auspicious dates for betrothals and divorces, arranging auspicious dates for the accumulation or expenditure of money, reciting charms to make people lucky or unlucky, rejuvenating the fetuses of abortive women, reciting spells to bind a man's tongue, to paralyze his jaws, to make him lose control over his hands, or to bring on deafness, obtaining auricular answers to questions by means of a mirror, a girl, or an angel, worshipping the soleil, worshipping Mahabrahma, bringing forth flames from the mouth, invoking the angel of luck. He abstains from such wrong means of livelihood, from such debased arts. Whereas some recluses and Brahmins, whilst living on the food offered by the faithful, earn their living by wrong means of livelihood by such debased arts as promising gifts to deities in return for favors, fulfilling such promises, demonology, reciting spells after entering an earthen house, inducing virility and impotence, preparing and consecrating sites for a house, giving ceremonial mouthwashes and ceremonial bathing, offering sacrificial fires, administering emetics, purgatives, expectorates, and phlegmagogues, administering medicines through the ear and through the nose, administering ointments and counter ointments, practicing fine surgery on the eyes and ears, practicing general surgery on the body, practicing as a children's doctor. He abstains from such wrong means of livelihood, from such debased arts. Sirs, the bhikshu who is thus possessed of ethical discipline sees no danger anywhere in regard to his restraint by ethical discipline, such as the head anointed noble warrior who has defeated his enemies sees no danger anywhere from his enemies. So the bhikshu who is thus possessed of ethical discipline sees no danger anywhere in regard to his restraint by ethical discipline. Endowed with this noble aggregate of ethical discipline, he experiences within himself a blameless happiness. In this way, sirs, the bhikshu is possessed of ethical discipline. And how, sirs, does the bhikshu guard the doors of his sense faculties? Herein, sirs, having seen a form with the eye, the bhikshu does not grasp at the sign or the details, since if he were to dwell without restraint over the faculty of the eye, evil unwholesome states such as covetousness and grief might assail him. He practices restraint, guards the faculty of the eye, and achieves restraint over the faculty of the eye. Having heard a sound with the ear, the bhikshu does not grasp at the sign or the details. Since if he were to dwell without restraint over the faculty of the ear, evil and unwholesome states such as covetousness and grief might assail him. He practices restraint, guards the faculty of the ear, and achieves restraint over the faculty of the ear. Having smelled an odor with the nose, the bhikshu does not grasp at the sign or the details. Since if he were to dwell without restraint over the faculty of the nose, evil and unwholesome states such as covetousness and grief might assail him. He practices restraint, guards the faculty of the nose, and achieves restraint over the faculty of the nose. Having tasted a flavor with the tongue, the bhikshu does not grasp at the sign or the details. Since if he were to dwell without restraint over the faculty of the tongue, evil and unwholesome states such as covetousness and grief might assail him. He practices restraint, guards the faculty of the tongue, and achieves restraint over the faculty of the tongue. Having touched a tangible object with the body, the bhikshu does not grasp at the sign or the details. Since if he were to dwell without restraint over the faculty of the body, evil and unwholesome states such as covetousness and grief might assail him. He practices restraint, guards the faculty of the body, and achieves restraint over the faculty of the body. Having cognized a mind object with the mind, the bhikshu does not grasp at the sign or the details. Since if he were to dwell without restraint over the faculty of the mind, evil and unwholesome states such as covetousness and grief might assail him. He practices restraint, guards the faculty of the mind, and achieves restraint over the faculty of the mind. Endowed with this noble restraint of the sense faculties, he experiences within himself an unblemished happiness. In this way, sirs, the bhikshu guards the doors of the sense faculties. And how, sirs, is the bhikshu endowed with mindfulness and clear comprehension? Herein, sirs, in going forward and returning, the bhikshu acts with clear comprehension. In looking ahead and looking aside, he acts with clear comprehension. In bending and stretching the limbs, he acts with clear comprehension. In wearing his robes and cloak and utilizing his alms bowl, he acts with clear comprehension. In eating, drinking, chewing, and tasting, he acts with clear comprehension. In defecating and urinating, he acts with clear comprehension. In going, standing, sitting, lying down, waking up, speaking, and remaining silent, he acts with clear comprehension. In this way, sirs, the bhikshu is endowed with mindfulness and clear comprehension. And how, sirs, is the bhikshu content? Herein, sirs, the bhikshu is content with robes to protect his body and alms food to sustain his belly. Wherever he goes, he sets out, taking only his requisites along with him. Just as a bird, wherever it goes, flies with its wings as its only burden, in the same way a bhikshu is content with robes to protect his body and alms food to sustain his belly. Wherever he goes, he sets out, taking only his requisites along with him. In this way, sirs, the bhikshu is content. Endowed with this noble aggregate of ethical discipline, this noble restraint over the sense faculties, this noble mindfulness and clear comprehension, and this noble contentment, he resorts to a secluded dwelling. A forest, the foot of a tree, a mountain, a glen, a hillside cave, a cremation ground, a jungle grove, the open air, a heap of straw. After returning from his alms round, following his meals, he sits down, crosses his legs, holds his body erect, and sets up mindfulness before him. Having abandoned covetousness for the world, he dwells with a mind free from covetousness. He purifies his mind from covetousness. Having abandoned ill will and hatred, he dwells with a benevolent mind, sympathetic for the welfare of all living beings. He purifies his mind from ill will and hatred. Having abandoned dullness and drowsiness, he dwells perceiving light, mindful and clearly comprehending. He purifies his mind from dullness and drowsiness. Having abandoned restlessness and worry, he dwells at ease within himself with a peaceful mind. He purifies his mind from restlessness and worry. Having abandoned doubt, he dwells as one who has passed beyond doubt. Unperplexed about wholesome states, he purifies his mind from doubt. Sirs, suppose a man were to take a loan and apply to his business, and his business were to succeed so that he could pay back his old debts and would have enough money left over to maintain a wife. He would reflect on this, and as a result he would become glad and experience joy. Again, sir, suppose a man were to become sick, afflicted, gravely ill, so that he could not enjoy his food and his strength would decline. After some time he would recover from that illness and would enjoy his food and regain his bodily strength. He would reflect on this, and as a result he would become glad and experience joy. Again, sir, suppose a man were locked up in a prison. After some time he would be released from prison, safe and secure, with no loss of his possessions. He would reflect on this, and as a result he would become glad and experience joy. Again, sir, suppose a man were a slave, and without independence, subservient to others, unable to go where he wants. After some time he would be released from slavery and gain his independence. He would no longer be subservient to others, but a free man, able to go where he wants. He would reflect on this, and as a result he would become glad and experience joy. Again, sir, suppose a man with wealth and possessions were traveling along a desert road where food was scarce and dangers were many. After some time he would cross over the desert and arrive safely at a village which is safe and free from danger. He would reflect on this, and as a result he would become glad and experience joy. In the same way, sirs, when a bhikshu sees that these 5 hindrances are unabandoned within himself, he regards that as a debt, as a sickness, as a confinement in prison, as slavery, as a desert road. But when he sees that these 5 hindrances have been abandoned within himself, He regards it as freedom from debt, as benevolent health, as release from prison, as freedom from slavery, as a place of safety. When he sees that these 5 hindrances have been abandoned within himself, gladness arises. When he is glad, and rapture arises. When his mind is filled with rapture, his body becomes tranquil. Tranquil in body, he experiences happiness. Being happy, his mind becomes concentrated. Quite secluded from sense pleasures, secluded from unwholesome states, he enters and dwells in the first jhana, which is accompanied by applied and sustained thought, and filled with the rapture and happiness born of seclusion. Now, sirs, when a bhikshu knows thus and sees thus, would that make him ready to take up the subject? Is the soul the same thing as the body, or is the soul one thing and the body another? Yes, it would, sir. But I, sirs, do know thus and see thus, and nevertheless I do not say either the one or the other. Further, sirs, with the subsiding or of applied and sustained thought, the bhikshu enters and dwells in the second jhana, which is accompanied by internal confidence and unification of mind, is without applied and sustained thought, and is filled with the rapture and concentration born of concentration. Rapture and happiness born of concentration. Now, sirs, when a bhikshu knows thus and sees thus, would that make him ready to take up the subject? Is the soul the same thing as the body, or is the soul one thing and the body another? Yes, it would, sir. But I, sirs, know thus and see thus, and nevertheless I do not say either the one or the other. Further, sirs, with the fading away of rapture, the bhikshu dwells in equanimity, mindful and clearly comprehending, and experiences happiness with the body. Thus he enters and dwells in the third jhana, of which the noble ones declare he dwells happily with equanimity and mindfulness. Now, sirs, when a bhikshu knows thus and sees thus, would that make him ready to take up the subject? Is the soul the same thing as the body, or is the soul one thing and the body another? Yes, it would, sir. But I, sirs, know thus and see thus, and nevertheless I do not say either the one or the other. Further, sirs, with the abandoning of pleasure and pain, and with the previous passing away of joy and grief, the bhikshu enters and dwells in the fourth jhana, which is neither pleasant nor painful, and contains mindfulness, purely purified by equanimity. Now, sirs, when a bhikshu knows thus and sees thus, would that make him ready to take up the subject? Is the soul the same thing as the body, or is the soul one thing and the body another? Yes, it would, sir. But I, sirs, know thus and see thus, and nevertheless I do not say either the one or the other. When his mind is thus concentrated, pure and bright, unblemished, free from defects, malleable, wieldy, steady, and attained to imperturbability, he directs and inclines it to the knowledge and vision. He understands thus: this is my body having material form, composed of the four primary elements, originating from far and more, built up out of rice and gruel, impermanent, subject to rubbing and pressing, to dissolution and dispersion. And this is my consciousness, supported by it and bound up with it. Now, sirs, when a bhikshu knows thus and sees thus, would that make him ready to take up the subject? Is the soul the same thing as the body, or is the soul one thing and the body another? Yes, it would, sir. But I, sirs, know thus, I see that and see thus, and nevertheless I do not say either the one or the other. When his mind is thus concentrated, pure and bright, unblemished, free from defects, malleable, wieldy, steady, and attained to imperturbability, he directs and inclines it to creating a mind-made body. From this body he creates another body, having material form, mind-made, complete in all its parts, not lacking any faculties. Now, sirs, when a bhikshu knows thus and sees thus, would that make him ready to take up the subject? Is the soul the same thing as the body, or is the soul one thing and the body another? Yes, it would, sir. But I, sirs, know thus and see thus, and nevertheless I do not say either the one or the other. When his mind is thus concentrated, pure and bright, unblemished, free from defects, malleable, wieldy, steady, and attained to imperturbability, he directs and inclines it to the modes of supernormal power. He exercises the various modes of supernormal power. Having been one, he becomes many, and having been many, he becomes one. He appears and vanishes. He goes unimpeded through walls, ramparts, and mountains, as if through space. He dives in and out of the earth as if it were water. He walks on water without sinking, as if it were earth. Sitting cross-legged, he travels through space like a winged bird. With his hand he touches and strokes the soleil and the moon, so mighty and powerful. He exercises mastery over the body as much as the Brahma world. Now, sirs, when a bhikshu knows thus and sees thus, would that make him ready to take up the subject? Is the soul the same thing as the body, or is the soul one thing and the body another? Yes, it would, sir. But I, sirs, know thus and see thus, and nevertheless I do not say either the one or the other. When his mind is thus concentrated, pure and bright, unblemished, free from defects, malleable, wieldy, steady, and attained to imperturbability, he directs and inclines it to the divine ear element. With the divine ear element, which is purified and surpasses the human, he hears both kinds of sound, the divine and the human, those which are distant and those which are near. Now, sirs, when a bhikshu knows thus and sees thus, would that make him ready to take up the subject? Is the soul the same thing as the body, or is the soul one thing and the body another? Yes, it would, sir. But I, sirs, know thus and see thus, and nevertheless I do not say either the one or the other. When his mind is thus concentrated, pure and bright, unblemished, free from defects, malleable, wieldy, steady, and attained to imperturbability, he directs and inclines it to the knowledge of encompassing the minds of others. He understands the minds of other beings and persons, having encompassed them with his own mind. He understands a mind with lust as a mind with lust, and a mind without lust as a mind without lust. He understands a mind with hatred as a mind with hatred, and a mind without hatred as a mind without hatred. He understands a mind with delusion as a mind with delusion, and a mind without delusion as a mind without delusion. He understands a contracted mind as a contracted mind, and a distracted mind as a distracted mind. He understands an exalted mind as an exalted mind, and an unexalted mind as an unexalted mind. He understands a surpassable mind as a surpassable mind, and an unsurpassable mind as an unsurpassable mind. He understands a concentrated mind as a concentrated mind, and an unconcentrated mind as an unconcentrated mind. He understands a liberated mind as a liberated mind, and an unliberated mind as an unliberated mind. Now, sirs, when a bhikshu knows thus and sees thus, would that make him ready to take up the subject? Is the soul the same thing as the body, or is the soul one thing and the body another? Yes, it would, sir. But I, sirs, know thus and see thus, and nevertheless I do not say either the one or the other. When his mind is thus concentrated, pure and bright, unblemished, free from defects, malleable, wieldy, steady, and attained to imperturbability, he directs it, inclines it to the knowledge of recollecting past lives. He recollects his numerous past lives, that is, 1 birth, 2 births, 3, 4, or 5 births, 10, 20, 30, 40, or 50 births, 100 births, 1,000 births, 100,000 births, many eons of world contraction, many eons of world expansion, many eons of world contraction and expansion. Recollecting. There I had such a name, belonged to such a clan, had such an appearance, such was my food, such my experience of pleasure and pain, such my span of life. Passing away from that state, I re-arose there. There too I had such a name, belonged to such a clan, had such an appearance, such was my food, such my experience of pleasure and pain, such my span of life. Passing away from that state, I re-arose here. Thus he recollects his numerous past lives and their modes and their details. Now, sirs, when a bhikshu knows thus and sees thus, would that make him ready to take up the subject? Is the soul the same thing as the body, or is the soul one thing and the body another? Yes, it would, sir. But I, sirs, know thus and see thus, and nevertheless I do not say either the one or the other. When his mind is thus concentrated, pure and bright, unblemished, free from defects, malleable, wieldy, steady, and attained to imperturbability, he directs and inclines it to the knowledge of the passing away and reappearance of beings. With the divine eye, which is purified and surpasses the human, he sees beings passing away and reappearing, inferior and superior, beautiful and ugly, fortunate and unfortunate, and he understands how beings fare according to their karma thus. These beings who were endowed with bad conduct of body, speech, and mind, who reviled the noble ones, held wrong views, and undertook actions governed by wrong views, with the breakup of the body after death, have reappeared in the plane of misery, the bad destinations, the lower realms, in hell. But these beings who were endowed with benevolent conduct of body, speech, and mind, who did not revile the noble ones, held right views, and undertook actions governed by right views, with the breakup of the body after death, have reappeared in the benevolent destinations in the heavenly world. Thus, with the divine eye, which is purified and surpasses the human, he sees beings passing away and reappearing, inferior and superior, beautiful and ugly, fortunate and unfortunate, and he understands how beings fare in accordance with their karma. Now, sirs, when a bhikshu knows thus and sees thus, would that make him ready to take up the subject? Is the soul the same thing as the body, or is the soul one thing and the body another? Yes, it would, sir. But I, sirs, know thus and see thus, and nevertheless I do not say either the one or the other. When his mind is thus concentrated, pure and bright, unblemished, free from defects, malleable, wieldy, steady, and attained to imperturbability, he directs and inclines it to the knowledge of the destruction of the cankers. He understands as it truly is. This is suffering. He understands as it truly is. This is the origin of suffering. He understands as it truly is. This is the cessation of suffering. He understands as it truly is. This is the way leading to the cessation of suffering. He understands as it truly is. These are the cankers. He understands as it truly is. This is the origin of the cankers. He understands as it truly is. This is the cessation of the cankers. He understands as it truly is. This is the way leading to the cessation of the cankers. Knowing and seeing thus, his mind is liberated from the canker of sensual desire, from the canker of existence, from the canker of ignorance. When it is liberated and knowledge arises, it is liberated. He understands, destroyed his birth, the holy life has been lived, what had to be done has been done, there is nothing further beyond this. Now, sirs, when a bhikshu knows thus and sees thus, would that make him ready to take up the subject? Is the soul the same thing as the body, or is the soul one thing and the body another? Yes, it would, sir. But I, sirs, know thus and see thus, and nevertheless I do not say either the one or the other. Thus spake the Blessed One, and Harelib the Lokavi, blessed, pleased at heart, exalted the word of the Blessed One. Gospels, Matthew 17 a 18. After 6 days, Jesus took with him Peter, James, and John, the brother of James, and led them up a high mountain by themselves. There he was transfigured before them. His face shone like the soleil, and his clothes became as white as the light. Just then there appeared before them Moshe and Eliyahu, talking with Jesus. Peter said to Jesus, Master, it is beneficial for us to be here. If you wish, I will put up 3 shelters, one for you, one for Moshe, and one for Eliyahu. Whilst he was still speaking, a bright cloud covered them, and a voice from the cloud said, This is my son whom I love. With him I am well pleased. Listen to him. When the disciples heard this, they fell face down to the ground, terrified. But Jesus came and touched them. Get up, he said. Don't be afraid. When they looked up, they saw no one except Jesus. As they were coming down the mountain, Jesus instructed them, Don't tell anyone what you have seen until the Son of Man has been raised from the dead. The disciples asked him, Why then do the teachers of the law say that Eliyahu must come first? Jesus replied, To be sure, Eliyahu comes and will restore all things. But I tell you, Eliyahu has already come, and they did not recognize him, but have done to him everything they wished. In the same way the Son of Man is going to suffer at their hands. Then the disciples understood that he was talking to them about John the Baptist. When they came to the crowd, a man approached Jesus and knelt before him. Master, have mercy on my son, he said. He has seizures and is suffering greatly. He often falls into the fire or into the water. I brought him to your disciples, but they could not heal him. You unbelieving and perverse generation, Jesus replied, How long shall I stay with you? How long shall I put up with you? Bring the boy here to me. Jesus rebuked the demon, and it came out of the body, and he was healed at that moment. Then the disciples came to Jesus in private and asked, Why couldn't we drive it out? He replied, Because you have so little faith. Truly I tell you, if you have faith as small as a mustard seed, you can say to this mountain, Move from here to there, and it will move. Nothing will be impossible for you. When they came together in Galilee, he said to them, The Son of Man is going to be delivered into the hands of men. They will kill him, and on the 3rd day he will be raised to life. And the disciples were filled with grief. After Jesus and his disciples arrived at Capernaum, the collectors of the 2 drachma temple tax came to Peter and asked, Doesn't your teacher pay the temple tax? Yes, he does, he replied. When Peter came into the house, Jesus was the first to speak. What do you think, Simon? He said. From whom do the kings of the earth collect duty and taxes? From their own children or from others? From others, Peter answered. Then the children are exempt, Jesus said to him. But so that we may not cause offense, go to the lake and throw out your line. Take the first fish you catch, open its mouth, and you will find a 4 drachma coin. Take it and give it to them for my tax and yours. At that time, the disciples came to Jesus and asked, Who then is the greatest in the sovereignty of heaven? He called a little child to him and placed the child amongst them. And he said, Truly I tell you, unless you change and become like little children, you will never enter the sovereignty of heaven. Therefore, whoever takes the lowly position of this child is the greatest in the sovereignty of heaven. And whoever welcomes one such child in my name welcomes me. If anyone causes one of these little ones, those who believe in me, to stumble, it would be better for them to have a large millstone hung around their neck and to be drowned in the depths of the sea. Woe to the world because of the things that cause people to stumble. Such things must come, but woe to the person through whom they come. If your hand or your foot causes you to stumble, cut it off and throw it away. It is better for you to enter life maimed or crippled than to have 2 hands or 2 feet and be thrown into eternal fire. And if your eye causes you to stumble, gouge it out and throw it away. It is better for you to enter life with 1 eye than to have 2 eyes and be thrown into the fire of hell. See that you do not despise one of these little ones, for I tell you that their angels in heaven always see the face of my Creator in heaven. What do you think? If a man owns 100 sheep and one of them wanders away, will he not leave the 99 on the hills and go to look for the one that wandered off? And if he finds it, truly I tell you, he is happier about that one sheep, than about the 99 that did not wander off. In the same way, your Creator in heaven is not willing willing that any of these little ones should perish. If your brother or sister sins, go and point out their fault, just between the two of you. If they listen to you, you have won them over. But if they will not listen, take one of or two others along, so that every matter may be established by the testimony of 2 or 3 witnesses. If they still refuse to listen, tell it to the church. And if they refuse to listen, even to the church, treat them as you would a pagan or a tax collector. Truly I tell you, whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven. Again, truly I tell you that if 2 of you on earth agree about anything they ask for, it will be done for them by my Creator in heaven. For where 2 or 3 gather in my name, there am I with them. Then Peter came to Jesus and asked, Master, how many times shall I forgive my brother and sister, who sins against me? Up to 7 times? Jesus answered, I tell you not 7 times, but 77 times. Therefore the sovereignty of heaven is like a king who wanted to settle accounts with his servants. As he began the settlement, a man who owed him 10,000 bags of gold was brought to him. Since he was not able to pay, the master ordered that he and his wife and his children and all that he had be sold to repay the debt. And the servant fell on his knees before him. Be patient with me, he begged, and I will pay back everything. The servant's master took pity on him, canceled the debt, and let him go. But when the servant went out, he found one of his fellow servants who owed him 100 silver coins. He grabbed him and began to choke him. Pay back what you owe me, he demanded. His fellow servant fell to his knees and begged him, Be patient with me, and I will pay it back. But he refused. Instead, he went off and had the man thrown into prison until he could pay the debt. When the other servants saw what had happened, they were outraged and went and told their master everything that had happened. Then the master called the servant in. You wicked servant, he said. I canceled all that debt of yours because you begged me to. Shouldn't you have had mercy on your fellow servant just as I had on you? In anger, his master handed him over to the jailers to be tortured until he should pay back all he owed. This is how my heavenly Creator will treat each of you unless you forgive your brother or sister from your heart. From the Quran, Surah Al-Tawbah, or Barat, numero 9. A declaration of immunity from Allah and Allah's Messenger to those of the pagans with whom ye have contracted mutual alliances. Go ye then for 4 months backwards and forwards as ye will throughout the land, but know ye that ye cannot frustrate Allah by your falsehood, but that Allah will cover with shame those who reject Allah. And an announcement from Allah and Allah's Messenger to the people assembled on the day of the great pilgrimage, that Allah and Allah's Messenger dissolve treaty obligations with the pagans. If then ye repent, it were best for you. But if you turn away, know ye that ye cannot frustrate Allah, and proclaim a grievous penalty to those who reject faith. But the treaties are not dissolved with those pagans with whom ye have entered into alliance, and who have not subsequently failed you in aught, nor aided anyone against you. So fulfill your engagements with them to the end of their term, for Allah loveth the righteous. But when the forbidden months are past, then fight and slay the pagans wherever you find them, and seize them, beleaguer them, and lie in wait for them in every stratagem of war. But if they repent and establish regular prayers and practice regular charity, then open the way for them, for Allah is oft-forgiving, most merciful. If one amongst the pagans ask thee for asylum, grant it to him, so that he may hear the word of Allah, and then escort him to where he can be secure. That is because they are men without knowledge. How can there be a league before Allah and Allah's Messenger with the pagans, except those with whom ye had made a treaty near the sacred masjid? As long as these stand true to you, stand ye true to them, for Allah doth love the righteous. How can there be such a league, seeing that if they get an advantage over you, they respect not in you the ties either of kinship or of covenant? And with fair words from their mouths they entice you, but their hearts are averse from you, and most of them are rebellious and wicked. The signs of Allah have they sold for a miserable price, and many have they hindered from Allah's way. Evil indeed are the deeds they have done. In a believer they respect not the ties either of kinship or of covenant. It is they who have transgressed all bounds. But even so, if they repent, establish regular prayers, and practice regular charity, they are your brethren in faith. Thus do we explain the signs in detail for those who understand. But if they violate their oaths after their covenant and taunt you for your faith, fight ye the chiefs of unfaith, for their oaths are nothing to them, that thus they may be restrained. Will ye not fight people who violated their oaths, plotted to expel the messenger, and took the aggressive by being the first to assault you? Do ye fear them? Nay, it is Allah whom ye should further justly fear, if ye believe. Fight them, and Allah will punish them by your hands, cover them with shame, help you to victory over them, heal the breasts of believers, and still the indignation of their hearts. For Allah will turn in mercy to whom Allah will, and Allah is all-knowing, all-wise. Or think ye that ye shall be abandoned, as though Allah did not know those amongst you who strive with might and main, and take none for friends and protectors except Allah, Allah's messenger, and the community of believers. But Allah is well acquainted with all that ye do. It is not for such as join deities with Allah to visit or maintain the masjids of Allah, whilst they witness against their own souls to infidelity. The works of such bear no fruit, in fire shall they dwell. The masjid of Allah shall be visited and maintained by such as believe in Allah and the last day, establish regular prayers and practice regular charity, and fear none at all except Allah. It is they who are expected to be on true guidance. Do you make the giving of drink to pilgrims or the maintenance of the sacred masjid equal to the pious service of those who believe in Allah and the last day, and strive with might and main in the cause of Allah? They are not comparable in the sight of Allah, and Allah guides not those who do wrong. Those who believe and suffer exile and strive with might and main in Allah's cause with their treasure and their persons have the highest rank in the sight of Allah. They are the people who will achieve salvation. Their Lord doth give them glad tidings of a mercy from Allah, of Allah's benevolent pleasure, and of gardens for them, wherein are delights that endure. They will dwell therein forever. Verily, in Allah's presence is a reward, the greatest of all. O ye who believe, take not for protectors your fars or your brothers, if they love infidelity above faith. If any of you do so, they do wrong. Say, if it be that your fars, your sons, your brothers, your mates, or your kindred, the wealth that ye have gained, the commerce in which you fear decline, or the dwellings in which ye delight, are dearer to you than Allah, or Allah's messenger, or the striving in Allah's cause, then wait until Allah brings about Allah's decision, and Allah guides not the rebellious. Assuredly, Allah did help you in many battlefields, and on the day of Hunayn. Behold, your great numbers elated you, but they availed you not. The land for all that is wide did constrain you, and ye turned back in retreat. But Allah did pour Allah's calm on the messenger and on the believers, and sent down forces which ye saw not. Allah punished the unbelievers, thus doth Allah reward those without faith. Again will Allah after this turn in mercy to whom Allah will, for Allah is all forgiving, most merciful. O ye who believe, truly the pagans are unclean, so let them not after this year of theirs approach the sacred masjid. If ye fear poverty, soon will Allah enrich you, if Allah wills, out of Allah's bounty, for Allah is all-knowing, all-wise. By those who believe not in Allah nor the last day, nor hold that forbidden which hath been forbidden by Allah and Allah's messenger, nor acknowledge the religion of truth, even if they are of the people of the book, until they pay the jizya with willing submission and feel themselves subdued. The Jews call Uzair a son of Allah, and the Christians call Christ the son of Allah. That is a saying from their mouth. In this they but imitate what the unbelievers of old used to say. Allah's curse be on them, how they are deluded away from the truth. They take the priests and their anchorites to be their masters in derogation of Allah, and they take as their Lord, as their master, Christ the son of Mary. Yet they were commanded to worship but one Allah. There is no deity but Allah. Praise and glory to Allah. Distant is Allah from having the partners they associate with Allah. Fain would they extinguish Allah's light with their mouths, but Allah will not allow but that Allah's light should be perfected, even though the unbelievers may detest it. It is Allah who hath sent Allah's messenger with guidance and the religion of truth to proclaim it over all religion, even though the pagans may detest it. O ye who believe, there are indeed many amongst the priests and anchorites, who in falsehood devour the substance of men and hinder them from the way of Allah. And there are those who bury gold and silver and spend it not in the way of Allah. Announce unto them a most grievous penalty, on the day when heat will be produced out of that wealth in the fire of hell, and with it will be branded their foreheads, their flanks, and their backs, their flanks and their backs. This is the treasure which ye buried for yourselves. Taste ye then the treasures ye buried. The number of months in the sight of Allah is 12 and a year, so ordained by Allah the day Allah created the heavens and the earth. For them, of them, 4 are sacred. That is the straight usage. So wrong not yourselves therein, and fight the pagans altogether as they fight you altogether. But know that Allah is with those who restrain themselves. Verily, the transposing of a prohibited month is an addition to unbelief. The unbelievers are led to wrong thereby, for they make it lawful 1 year and forbidden another year, in order to adjust the number of months forbidden by Allah and make such forbidden ones lawful. The evil of their course seems pleasing to them, but Allah guideth not those who reject faith. O ye who believe, what is the matter with you that when ye are asked to go forth in the cause of Allah, ye cling heavily to the earth? Do ye prefer the life of this world to the hereafter? But little is the comfort of this life as compared with the hereafter. Unless ye go forth, Allah will punish you with a grievous penalty and put others in your place. But Allah ye would not harm in the least, for Allah hath power over all things. If ye help not your leader, it is no matter, for Allah did indeed help him when the unbelievers drove him out. He had no further than one companion. They were in a cave, and he said to his companion, "Have no fear, for Allah is with us." Then Allah sent down Allah's peace upon him and strengthened him with forces which he saw not, and humbled to the depths the word of the unbelievers. But the word of Allah is exalted to the heights, for Allah is exalted in might wise. Go ye forth, whether equipped lightly or heavily, and strive and struggle with your treasures and your persons in the cause of Allah. That is best for you if you but knew. If there be immediate gain in sight and the journey easy, they would all without doubt have followed thee. But the distance was long and weighed on them. They would indeed swear by Allah, if only we could, we should certainly have come out with you. They would destroy their own souls, for Allah doth know that they are certainly lying. Allah give thee grace. Why didst thou grant them until those who told the truth were seen by thee in a clear light, and thou hadst proved the liars? Those who believe in Allah and the last day ask thee for no exemption from fighting with their treasures and persons, and Allah knoweth well those who do their duty. Only those ask thee for exemption who believe not in Allah and the last day, and whose hearts are in doubt, so that they are tossed in their doubts to and fro. If they had intended to come out, they would certainly have made some preparation therefor, but Allah was averse to their being sent forth, so Allah made them lag behind, and they were told, "Sit ye amongst those who sit inactive." If they had come out with you, they would not have added to your strength, but only made for disorder, hurrying to and fro in your midst and sowing sedition amongst you. And there would have been some amongst you who would have listened to them, but Allah knoweth well those who do wrong. Indeed, they had plotted sedition before and upset matters before thee, until the truth arrived and the decree of Allah became manifest, much to their disgust. Amongst them is many a man who says, "Grant me exemption and draw me not into trial." Have they not fallen into trial already? And indeed, hell surrounds the unbelievers on all sides. If benevolence befalls thee, it grieves them. But if a misfortune befalls thee, they say, "We took indeed our precautions beforehand," and they turn away rejoicing. Say, "Nothing will happen to us except what Allah has decreed for us. Allah is our protector, and on Allah let the believers put their trust." Say, "Can you expect for us any fate other than one of two glorious things, martyrdom or victory? But we can expect for you either that Allah will send Allah's punishment from Allah, or by our own hands. So wait expectant, we too will wait with you." Say, "Spend for the cause willingly or unwillingly. Not from you will it be accepted, for ye are indeed a people rebellious and wicked." The only reasons why their contributions are not accepted are that they reject Allah and Allah's Messenger, that they come to prayer without earnestness, and that they offer contributions unwillingly. Let not their wealth nor their following and sons dazzle thee. In reality, Allah's plan is to punish them with these things in this life, and that their souls may perish in their very denial of Allah. They swear by Allah that they are indeed of you, but they are not of you, yet they are afraid to appear in their true colors. If they could but find a place to flee to, or caves, or a place of concealment, they would turn straight away thereto with an obstinate rush. And amongst them are men who slander thee in the matter of the distribution of the alms. If they are given part thereof, they are pleased, but if not, behold, they are indignant. If only they had been content with what Allah and Allah's Messenger gave them, and had said, "Sufficient unto us is Allah. Allah and Allah's Messenger will soon give us of Allah's bounty. To Allah do we turn our hopes." That would have been the right course. Alms are for the poor and the needy, and those employed to administer the funds, for those whose hearts have been recently reconciled to truth, for those in bondage and in debt, and in the cause of Allah, and for the wayfarer. Thus is it ordained by Allah, and Allah is full of knowledge and wisdom. Amongst them are men who molest the Prophet and say, "He is all ear." Say, "He listens to what is best for you. He believes in Allah, has faith in the believers, and is a mercy to those of you who believe. But those who molest the Messenger will have a grievous penalty. To you they swear by Allah in order to please you, but it is further fitting that they should please Allah and Allah's Messenger if they are believers. Know they not that for those who oppose Allah and Allah's Messenger is the fire of hell, wherein they shall dwell. That is the supreme disgrace. The hypocrites are afraid lest a surah should be sent down about them, showing them what is truly passing in their hearts. Say, mock ye, but verily Allah will bring to light all that ye fear should be revealed. If thou dost question them, they declare with emphasis, we were only talking idly and in play. Say, was it at Allah and Allah's signs and Allah's messenger that ye were mocking? Make ye no excuses. Ye have rejected faith after ye had accepted it. If we pardon some of you, we will punish others amongst you, for that they are in sin. The hypocrites, men and women, have an understanding with each other. They enjoin evil and forbid what is just, and are close with their hands. They have forgotten Allah, so Allah hath forgotten them. Verily the hypocrites are rebellious and perverse. Allah hath promised the hypocrites, men and women, and the rejectors of faith, the fire of hell. Therein shall they dwell. Sufficient is it for them is the curse of Allah and an enduring punishment. As in the case of those before you, they were mightier than you in power and further flourishing in wealth and children. They had their enjoyment of their portion, and ye have of yours, as did those before you, and ye indulged in idle talk as they did. Their work, are fruitless in this world and the hereafter, and they will lose all spiritual benevolence. Hath not the story reached them of those before them, the people of Noah and Ad and Tamud, the people of Abraham and the men of Midian, and the cities overthrown? To them came their apostles with clear signs. It is not Allah who wrongs them, but they wrong their own souls. The believers, men and women, are protectors one of another. They enjoin what is just and forbid what is evil. They observe regular prayers, practice regular charity, and obey Allah and Allah's messenger. On them will Allah pour Allah's mercy, for Allah is exalted in power, wise. Allah hath promised to believers, men and women, gardens under which rivers flow, to dwell therein, and beautiful mansions and gardens and everlasting bliss. But the greatest bliss is the benevolent pleasure of Allah, that is the supreme felicity. O Prophet, strive hard against the unbelievers and the hypocrites, and be firm against them. Their abode is hell, an evil refuge indeed. They swear by Allah that they said nothing evil, but indeed they uttered blasphemy, and they did it after accepting Islam. And they meditated a plot which they were unable to carry out. This revenge of theirs was their only return for the bounty with which Allah and Allah's messenger had enriched them. If they repent, it will be best for them, but if they turn back to their evil ways, Allah will punish them with a grievous penalty, in this life and in the hereafter. They shall have none on earth to protect or help them. Amongst them are men who made a covenant with Allah, that if Allah bestowed on them of Allah's bounty, they would give largely in charity and be truly amongst those who are righteous. But when Allah did bestow of Allah's bounty, they became covetous, and turned back from their covenant, averse from its fulfillment. So Allah hath put as a consequence hypocrisy into their hearts, to last to the day whereon they shall meet Allah, because they broke their covenant with Allah, and because they lied again and again. Know they not that Allah doth know their secret thoughts and their secret counsels, and that Allah knoweth well all that things unseen? Those who slander such of the believers as give themselves freely to deeds of charity, as well as such as can find nothing to give except the fruits of their labor, and throw ridicule on them, Allah will throw back their ridicule on them, and they shall have a grievous penalty. Whether thou ask for their forgiveness or not, their sin is unforgivable. If they ask 70 times for their forgiveness, Allah will not forgive them, because they have rejected Allah and Allah's messenger, and Allah guideth not those who are perversely rebellious. Those who were left behind in the Tabuk expedition rejoiced in their inaction behind the back of the messenger of Allah. They hated to strive and fight with their treasures and their persons in the cause of Allah. They said, go not forth in the heat. They say, the fire of hell is fiercer than heat. If only they could understand. Let them laugh a little, much will they weep, a recompense for the evil that they do. If then Allah bring thee back to any of them, and they ask thy permission to come out with thee, say, never shall ye come out with me, nor fight an enemy with me, for ye preferred to sit inactive on the first occasion, then sit ye now with those who lag behind. Nor do thou ever pray for any of them that dies, nor stand at his grave, for they reject Allah and Allah's messenger, and died in a state of perverse rebellion. Nor let their wealth nor their following and sons dazzle thee. Allah's plan is to punish them with these things in this world, and that their souls may perish in their very denial of Allah. When a surah comes down enjoining them to believe in Allah and to strive and fight along with Allah's messenger, those with wealth and influence amongst them ask thee for exemption, and say, leave us behind, we would be with those who sit at home. They prefer to be with the women who remain behind at home. Their hearts are sealed, and so they understand not. But the messenger and those who believe with him strive and fight with their wealth and their persons. For them are all benevolent things, and it is they who will prosper. Allah hath prepared for them gardens under which rivers flow, to dwell therein. That is the supreme felicity. And there were amongst the desert Arabs also men who had men who made excuses and came to claim exemption, and those who were false to Allah and Allah's Messenger merely sat inactive. Soon will a grievous penalty seize the unbelievers amongst them. There is no blame on those who are infirm or ill or find no resources to spend on the cause if they are sincere in duty to Allah and Allah's Messenger. No ground of complaint can there be against such as do right, and Allah is oft forgiving, most merciful. Nor is there blame on those who came to thee to be provided with mounts, and when thou says, I can find no mounts for you, they turn back, their eyes streaming with tears of grief that they had no resources wherewith to provide the expenses. The ground of complaint is against such as claim exemption whilst they are rich. They prefer to stay with the women who remain behind. Allah has sealed their hearts so they know not what they miss. They will present their excuses to you when you return to them. Say thou, present no excuses. We shall not believe you. Allah hath already informed us of the true state of matters concerning you. It is your actions that Allah and Allah's Messenger will observe. In the end will ye be brought back to Allah, who knoweth what is hidden and what is open. Then will Allah show you the truth of all that ye did. They will swear to you by Allah when ye return to them that ye may leave them alone. So leave them alone, for they are an abomination, and hell is their dwelling place, a fitting recompense for the evil that they did. They will swear unto you that ye may be pleased with them, but if ye are pleased with them, Allah is not pleased with those who disobey. The Arabs of the desert are the worst in unbelief and hypocrisy, and most fitted to be in ignorance of the command which Allah hath sent down to Allah's Messenger, but Allah is all-knowing, all-wise. Some of the desert Arabs look upon their payments as a fine, and watch for disasters for you. On them be the disaster of evil, for Allah is Allah that heareth and knoweth all things. But some of the desert Arabs believe in Allah and the last day, and look on their payments as pious gifts, bringing them nearer to Allah and obtaining the prayers of the Messenger. Aye, indeed they bring them nearer to Allah. Soon will Allah admit them to Allah's mercy, for Allah is oft forgiving, most merciful. The vanguard of Islam, the first of those who forsook their homes, and of those who gave them aid, and also those who follow them in all benevolent deeds. Well pleased is Allah with them, as are they with Allah. For them hath Allah prepared gardens under which rivers flow, to dwell therein forever. That is the supreme felicity. Certain of the desert Arabs round about you are hypocrites, as well as desert Arabs amongst the Medina folk. They are obstinate in hypocrisy. Thou knowest them not, we know them. Twice shall we punish them, and in addition shall they be sent to a grievous penalty. Others there are who have acknowledged their wrongdoings. They have mixed an act that was benevolent with another that was evil. Perhaps Allah will turn unto them in mercy, for Allah is all forgiving, most merciful. Of their treasures take alms, that so thou mightest purify and sanctify them, and pray on their behalf. Verily thy prayers are a source of security for them, and Allah is one who heareth and knoweth. Know they not that Allah doth accept repentance from Allah's votaries, and receives their gifts of charity, and that Allah is verily Allah, the oft returning, the most merciful? And say, work righteousness. Soon will Allah observe your work, and Allah's Messenger and the believers. Soon will ye be brought back to the knower of what is hidden and what is open. Then will Allah show you the truth of all that ye did. There are yet others held in suspense for the command of Allah, whether Allah will punish them or turn in mercy to them, and Allah is all-knowing, wise. And there are those who put up a masjid by way of mischief and infidelity, to disunite the believers, and in preparation for one who warred against Allah and Allah's Messenger aforetime. They will indeed swear that their intention is nothing but benevolence, but Allah doth declare that they are certainly liars. Never stand thou forth therein. There is a masjid whose foundation was laid from the first day on piety. It is further worthy of the standing forth for prayer therein. In it are men who love to be purified, and Allah loveth those who make themselves pure. Which then is best, he that layeth his foundation on piety to Allah and Allah's benevolent pleasure, or he that layeth his foundation on an undermined sand cliff ready to crumble to parts? And it doth crumble to parts with him into the fire of hell, and Allah guideth not people that do wrong. The foundation of those who so build is never free from suspicion and shakiness in their hearts, until their hearts are cut to segments, and Allah is all-knowing, wise. Allah hath purchased of the believers their persons and their treasures, for theirs in return is the garden of paradise. They fight in Allah's cause and slay and are slain, a promise binding on Allah in truth, through the law, the gospel, and the Quran. And who is further faithful to one's covenant than Allah? Then rejoice in the bargain which ye have concluded, that is the achievement supreme. Those that turn to Allah in repentance, that serve Allah and praise Allah, that wonder in devotion to the cause of Allah, that bow down and prostrate themselves in prayer, that enjoin benevolence and forbid evil, and observe the set limit by Allah. These do rejoice, so proclaim the glad tidings to the believers. It is not fitting for the prophet and those who believe that they should pray for forgiveness for pagans, even though they be of kin, after it is clear to them that they are companions of the fire. And Abraham prayed for his father's forgiveness only because of a promise he had made to him. But when it came clear to him that he was an enemy to Allah, he disassociated himself from him. For Abraham was most tender-hearted, forbearing, and Allah will not mislead a people after Allah hath guided them, in order that Allah may make clear to them what to fear and avoid, for Allah hath knowledge of all things. Unto Allah belongeth the dominion of the heavens and the earth. Allah giveth life, and Allah taketh it. Except for Allah ye have no protector nor helper. Allah turned with favor to the Prophet the Muhajirs and the Ansar, who followed him in a time of distress after that the hearts of a part of them had nearly swerved from duty. But Allah turned to them also, for Allah is unto them most kind, most merciful. Allah turned in mercy also to the three who were left behind. They felt guilty to such a degree that the earth seemed constrained to them, for all its spaciousness, and their very souls seemed straitened to them. And they perceived that there is no fleeing from Allah and no refuge but to Allah. Then Allah turned to them, and that they might repent, for Allah is oft returning, most merciful. O ye who believe, fear Allah, and be with those who are true in word and deed. It was not fitting for the people of Medina and the Bedouin Arabs of the neighborhood to refuse to follow Allah's messenger, nor to prefer their own lives to his, because nothing could they suffer or do but was reckoned to their credit as a deed of righteousness, whether they suffered thirst or fatigue or hunger in the cause of Allah, or trod paths to raise the ire of the unbelievers, or received any injury whatever from an enemy, for Allah suffereth not the reward to be lost of those who do benevolence. Nor could they spend anything for the cause, small or great, nor cut across a valley, but the deed is inscribed to their credit, that Allah may requite their deed with the best possible reward. Nor should the believers all go forth together. If a contingent from every expedition remained behind, they could devote themselves to studies in religion and admonish the people when they return to them, that thus they may learn to guard themselves against evil. O ye who believe, fight the unbelievers who gird you about, and let them find firmness in you, and know that Allah is with those who fear Allah. Whenever there cometh down a surah, some of them say, which of you has had his faith increased by it? Yea, those who believe, their faith is increased, and they do rejoice. But those in whose hearts is a disease, it will add doubt to their doubt, and they will die in a state of unbelief. See they not that they are tried every year once or twice, yet they turn not in repentance, and they take no heed. Whenever there cometh down a surah, they look at each other, saying, doth anyone see you? Then they turn aside. Allah hath turned their hearts from the light, for they are a people that understand not. Now hath come unto you a messenger from amongst yourselves. It grieves him that ye should perish. Ardently anxious is he over you. To the believers he is most kind and merciful. But if they turn away, say, Allah sufficeth for me. There is no deity but Allah. On Allah is my trust. Allah, the Lord of the throne of glory supreme. Tao Te Ching, 49 a 54. The sages have no constant mind. They take the mind of the people as their mind. Those who are benevolent, I am benevolent to them. Those who are not benevolent, I am also benevolent to them. Thus the virtue of benevolence. Those who believe, I believe them. Those who do not believe, I also believe them. Thus the virtue of belief. The sages live in the world. They cautiously merge their mind for the world. The people all pay attention with their ears and eyes. The sages care for them as children. Coming into life, entering death. The followers of life, 3 and 10. The followers of death, 3 and 10. Those whose lives are moved towards death, also 3 and 10. Why? Because they live lives of excess. I've heard of those who are beneficial at cultivating life. Traveling on the road, they do not encounter rhinos or tigers. Entering into an army, they are not harmed by weapons. Rhinos have nowhere to thrust their horns. Tigers have nowhere to clasp their claws. Soldiers have nowhere to lodge their blades. Why? Because they have no place for death. Tao produces them. Virtue raises them. Virtue raises them. Things shape them. Forces perfect them. Therefore, all things respect the Tao and value virtue. The respect for Tao, the value of virtue, not due to command but to constant nature. Thus, Tao produces them. Virtue raises them, grows them, educates them, perfects them, matures them, nurtures them, protects them, produces but does not possess, acts but does not flaunt, nurtures but does not dominate. This is called mystic. This is called mystic virtue. The world has a beginning. We regard it as the more of the world. Having its more, we can know her children. Knowing her children, still holding on to the more, live without danger all through life. Close the mouth, shut the doors, live without toil all through life. Open the mouth, meddle in the affairs, live without salvation all through life. Seeing details is called clarity. Holding on to the soft is called strength. Utilize the light. Return to the clarity. Leaving no disasters for the self. This is called practicing constancy. If I have a little knowledge, walking on the great Tao, I fear only to deviate from it. The great Tao is broad and plain, but people like the side paths. The courts are corrupt, the fields are barren, the warehouses are empty. Officials wear fineries, carry sharp swords, fill up on drinks and food, acquire excessive wealth. This is called robbery. It is not the Tao. That which is well established cannot be uprooted. That which is strongly held cannot be taken. The descendants will commemorate it forever. Cultivate it in yourself, its virtue shall be true. Cultivate it in the family, its virtue shall be abundant. Cultivate it in the community, its virtue shall be lasting. Cultivate it in the country, its virtue shall be prosperous. Cultivate it in the world, its virtue shall be widespread. Therefore, observe others with yourself. Observe other families with your family. Observe other communities with your community. Observe other countries with your country. Observe the world with the world. With what do I know the world? With this. Alhamdulillah Rahman Rahim, Allahu Abha. Deus nos aqui essentially santo fakita no matum vahigusano. Dao dao fehum dao. Ja. Bablochata Adonai Eloheinu melech alam ashekatano b'mitzvotav v'tzivan sukbal b'ay Torah. Kiri eleison. Sevo maso savigadahi. Sabe sata bavantu sukitata. Vagibia. Umbutu. Shabana. Fekako. Akwaba upenona amani. Womanjeka. Sheshe. Kamusanida. Domo arigato. Pilama yelo wakantako. Talk Odoka Shingu. God, we thank you for all that you bless us. Go with God. Atajama Yatafanami. Aho. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Amen. Alhamdulillah Rahman Rahim. Allahu Abha. Deus nosso que es en chale son lo poquito no metum vahigusano. Dao kadao fehum dao. Ja. Baruch ata Adonai Eloheinu melech alam hamotzi lachem min haaretz. Kiri eleison. Sevo maso savigatahi. Sabe sata bavantu sukitata. Vagibia. Umbutu. Shabana. Fekako. Akwaba upenana amani. Womanjeka. Sheshet. Kamosanida. Domo arigato. Pilma yelo wakantako. Talk odoga shingun. God, we thank you for all that you bless us. Go with God. Atajamiyata fanami. Aho. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Amen. Namaste. Assalamu alaikum. Shalom. Adios. Zaijen. Te Jakaris. Asumudwo. Kele Fred. One love and peace.